very warm welcome. I am Gushin Garland and you're watching Firstpost. In the next few minutes, I get you the top 40 updates from around the world, only here on Fast and Factual. Let's get started. We begin with the latest from South Asia. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi began a two-day visit to Gujarat, where he's expected to launch projectiles worth over $9 billion. This marks Prime Minister Modi's first visit to his home state since Operation Sindoor. During a public event, Prime Minister Modi said Operation Sindoor was more than just a military action, as it represented the expressions and values of Indians. Several groups of all-party delegations from India reached key destinations to brief governments worldwide on New Delhi's stance against cross-border terrorism from Pakistan following Operation Sindoor. One of the delegation is set to engage with members of France's Senate and National Assembly later today. Meanwhile, another delegation led by MP Shashi Tharoor will visit Panama tomorrow after high-level meetings in Guyana. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar spoke with his Canadian counterpart Anita Anand. This was their first conversation since Canada's recent elections, and they came as ties between New Delhi and Ottawa were strained following allegations made by former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. The call between the two ministers focused on strengthening economic cooperation and advancing shared priorities. Moving to the war in West Asia, Gaza's civil defense agency said an Israeli strike on a school-turned-shelter for displaced people killed at least 33. This came as intensified violence in the besieged Palestinian enclave drew sharp international condemnation of Israel. Meanwhile, the Israeli army said it detected 3 projectiles launched from Gaza, one of which it intercepted. In Southeast Asia, French President Emmanuel Macron called in Vietnam for preservation of a world order based on law as he began a 6-day tour of Southeast Asia, a region caught in the confrontation between the US and China. This came as Macron positioned France as a reliable alternative for countries in the region. Meanwhile, Southeast Asian leaders met in Kuala Lumpur for their first summit since President Donald Trump's tariffs disrupted global economic norms. The ASEAN bloc expressed deep concern over the unilateral measures, warning they posed complex challenges for the region. However, ASEAN said it would not impose retaliatory tariffs on the US this year. In East Asia, North Korea detains another official over last week's failed warship launch, which damaged 5,000-ton destroyer and sparked a major investigation. And comes as leader Kim Jong-un called the mishap a criminal act of absolute carelessness. In the United States, President Donald Trump called his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin, quote-unquote, absolutely crazy. This comes after Moscow launched a deadly barrage of drones against Ukraine over the weekend, despite the two warring countries competing a large-scale prisoner exchange. Trump, who often speaks of Putin with admiration, said he did not like the Russian leader sending rockets into cities and killing people. Meanwhile, President Trump says US negotiators have had very good talk with an Iranian delegation over the weekend. This as Washington seeks a deal to prevent Tehran from developing a nuclear weapon. Trump tells reporters he has a feeling something good could be announced soon after 5th round of talks in Rome led by US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. In Latin America, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's party sweeps parliamentary and regional elections in a vote boycotted by the opposition over his disputed re-election last year. The ruling socialists win 23 of 24 state governor positions as turnout slumps below 43% amid mass arrests and crackdown on dissent. In climate news, an unexpected tornado tore through the southern Chilean city of Puerto Varas. It triggered emergency weather warnings across multiple regions. Eyewitnesses footage showed a funnel cloud swirling through the city streets. While no fatalities or major infrastructure damage were reported, the National Disaster Prevention Service confirmed at least 8 injuries. Helicopters were deployed across flood-ravaged parts of New South Wales, Australia, to deliver animal feed and emergency supplies to farmers isolated by rising waters. The floods caused by days of relentless rain have left at least 5 dead, destroyed homes and stranded an estimated 32,000 residents. India's capital, New Delhi, logged its wettest May on record. This is following a powerful overnight thunderstorm that drenched the capital, flooded roads and disrupted flight operations. The India Meteorological Department reported this as the second highest single-day May rainfall in record history, surpassed only by a deluge in 2021. At least 8 people were killed and 45 others injured after a severe dust storm followed by heavy rain swept through Pakistan's Punjab over the weekend. The fatalities were mostly due to collapsing structures and debris, with some houses sustaining serious damage. Lahore, the provincial capital, saw trees and solar panels uprooted by powerful gusts. Iraq is staring down a deepening water crisis, with officials confirming the country's water reserves are now at their lowest in 80 years. Water Resources Ministry spokesperson revealed the country has only 10 billion cubic meters of water available. This is far short of the 18 billion needed to sustain the upcoming summer season. The drastic drop has been blamed on several compounding factors, including climate change. On to business and tech news now. Stock markets across Asia edge higher after President Donald Trump extended his threat to impose 50% tariffs on EU goods by more than a month. MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan rose 0.12% earlier today, while Japan's Nikkei also tickled up slightly. In contrast, China's blue chip index fell 0.2% and Hong Kong's Hang Seng slipped 0.4% in early trade. Meanwhile, gold prices ease after President Donald Trump set a July 9 deadline for a trade deal with the European Union, rescinding his earlier threat of 50% tariff from June 1. Spot gold was down 0.3% at over $3,346 an ounce, while US gold futures fell 0.6%. President Trump also says his tariff policy aims to boost domestic production of tanks, ships, chips and AI, not sneakers, socks or t-shirts. The comments come as Trump-backed US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's view that a booming textile industry isn't essential to America's future. Continuing in the United States, President Trump said that the United States will have full control over US Steel as part of company's partnership with Japanese firm Nippon Steel. This comes after Nippon Steel said it plans to invest $14 billion into US Steel's operation, including $4 billion in a new steel mill. A new report suggests India's economy likely grew 6.7% year-on-year in the January to March quarter, up from 6.2% the previous quarter, driven partly by stronger rural demand linked to better agricultural output. This comes as the Reserve Bank of India is expected to cut interest rates for a third consecutive meeting in June. Stockbroking firm Grove files draft papers with Indian markets regulator SEBI for an initial public offering estimated to be around $700 million to $1 billion through a confidential pre-filing route. This as the platform becomes a front runner in digital retail investing in India. Vietnamese budget airline Vietjet agrees to place a new order with European plane maker Airbus for 20 A330neo wide-body jets. The deal coincides with French President Emmanuel Macron's visit to Vietnam, bringing Vietjet's total A330neo orders to 40. Elon Musk says he will resume working 24/7 at his companies, including social media platform X, Tesla and SpaceX. This comes after an outage impacted tens and thousands of users of X over the weekend. It also comes as Musk said he would cut his political spending substantially last week. Nvidia is reportedly planning to launch a new AI chipset for China at a lower price than its restricted H20 model, with mass production expected to begin in June. This comes as Nvidia's market share in China dropped 95% to 50% amid US export curbs, forcing it to write off $5.5 billion in inventory. OpenAI says it will set up its first office in Seoul as demand in South Korea surges for its ChatGPT service. The country has the second largest number of paying ChatGPT subscribers after the United States. The company is also hiring locally to support new partnerships and plan further announcements in the coming months. Moving to sports, we begin with cricket. Hyderabad signed off their IPL campaign with a massive win over Kolkata by 110 runs. Batting first at Delhi's Arun Jaitley Stadium, Hyderabad put a mammoth 278 runs on the scoreboard. This as Henry Klaasen struck a 105-run knock off 39 balls and Travis Head struck a 76-run knock. In response, Kolkata were bowled out for 168 runs. Meanwhile, at Ahmedabad's Narendra Modi Stadium, Chennai beat Gujarat by 83 runs. Batting first, Chennai put 230 runs on the scoreboard. In response, Gujarat were bowled out at 147 runs, with Anshul Kamboj and Noor Ahmed striking down 3 wickets each. In football, Manchester United signed off their Premier League season with a win. The 15th place finishers beat Aston Villa 2-0 on Sunday. This as Amad Diallo struck a 76th minute goal, with Christian Eriksen following through shortly after. Arsenal also signed off the Premier League season with a win. The second place finisher beat Southampton 2-1 yesterday. With a 1-1 scoreline maintained starting the 56th minute, Martin Odegaard scored an 89th minute winner for the Arsenal. The goal sent Southampton to a record 30th Premier League defeat of the season. And after a 1-1 draw with Crystal Palace, Liverpool lifted the coveted Premier League silverware with grand celebrations. Arne Slot's side wrapped up their record equalling 20th English crown with a demolition of Tottenham in April. But the long-awaited trophy presentation was saved for the final game of the season. In tennis, 14 times French Opener winner Rafael Nadal was honoured in an emotional ceremony at Roland Garros. Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic and Andy Murray also joined to celebrate the legacy of the 37-year-old Spaniard legend. Nadal was presented with a special trophy commemorating his French Open record. A mark of his footprint was also carved into clay, befitting to his King of Clay glory. And Alexandra Ella crashed out of the French Open after first round loss. The Filipino debutant went down in 3 sets to Colombia's Emilia Aragona. The 20-year-old became the first tennis player from the Philippines to appear in the main draw of a Grand Slam in the Open era. In badminton, after a splendid run in the Malaysia Masters, India's Kidambi Srikanth suffered defeat in the men's single final. The former world number one went down 21-11, 21-9 against China's Li Shifeng. The match lasted just 36 minutes. McLaren's Lando Norris won the Monaco Grand Prix, controlling the race from start to finish. Norris beat Ferrari's Charles Leclerc as Oscar Piastri took third ahead of Max Verstappen's fourth and Lewis Hamilton's distant fifth. Norris's victory cut Piastri's lead at the head of the championship to 3 points. Verstappen remains a further 22 points behind at third place. And India's Kush Maini gave the country's motorsport a proud moment as he became the first Indian to win a Formula 2 race at Monaco. Maini delivered a flawless performance to clinch the sprint race win on the iconic streets of Monte Carlo. And finally, from the world of showbiz, after Iranian filmmaker Jafar Panahi won the Palme d'Or at Cannes for his film It Was Just an Accident, French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot hailed the win as gesture of resistance against the Iranian regime's oppression. After this, Iran's foreign ministry summoned the French envoy in Tehran, calling Barrot's remarks insulting, irresponsible and blatant interference. Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the armourer convicted in connection with the tragic 2021 shooting death of cinematographer Halna Hutchins on the set of Rust, has been released from prison. Reed completed her 18th-month sentence and was signed. Her release comes with parole conditions tied to her involuntary manslaughter conviction. In addition, she is also under probation supervision for separate weapons offence. Children's program Coco Melon is set to move to Disney Plus in 2027. This is after Netflix declined to renew its license, citing a staggering 60% drop in viewership. Once a top performer for Netflix's preschool content slate, the show has failed to crack Nielsen rating systems to 10 in 2024, a steep fall from its 2023 ranking at number 5. This year's Memorial Day box office shattered records thanks to two crowd-pulling juggernauts: Disney's live-action Lilo and Stitch and Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Lilo and Stitch stormed into the theaters with an opening of $145.5 million. Meanwhile, Cruise's latest installment in the Mission Impossible franchise brought in franchise's best $77 million. And finally, country music star Morgan Wallen has scored the biggest album debut of 2025 with I Am the Problem. It is a sprawling 37-track release that pulled in a whopping over 400,000 units in its first week. The album also notched over 400 million on-demand streams. Wallen's release dethroned The Weeknd's January debut, which had previously held the record for the year's biggest opening week. That's all for today. Thank you for joining us. I am Gusheen Garland and we'll see you right back here tomorrow. Stay informed and stay tuned to Firstpost.